But when you look back in hindsight, everything is 20/20. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, is so much clearer now.
Welcome to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm Lee Jones, your host, and thanks for tuning in. This is the show where amazing guests get real, sharing their highs and lows and lessons that shape their journeys. And along the way, they'll drop tips and strategies to help you level up in life and in your career. So grab your compass, your protractor, or look, just settle in and let's rewind, reflect, and find the wisdom in the journey. What goes through a service member's mind when they leave a structured world of the military and step into the unpredictability of civilian life? Well, Ryan Christensen knows this journey intimately. As a veteran of the Marine Corps and the Air National Guard, with over 2 decades of experience in intelligence operation, Ryan has transformed his own struggles into a mission to help others unlock their potential. He's now a professional hypnotist. I always have problems with that word. And the author of, everybody does, and the author of Winter Peace, How to End Inner Conflict and Make Success Inevitable. Let's explore how Ryan's expertise in peak mental focus and performance can guide service members and high achievers alike to overcome their inner battles and thrive in the next chapters of their lives. Good morning. Welcome, Ryan. How you doing?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And I tell you what, I'm always happy to have fellow veterans on the call, right? We have shared experiences. Some of the things resonated. One, the biggest topic is when you leave the military, when you transition out, there's a little bit of uncertainty. Some people plan a little better than others. I was not that person. It turned out okay, but mentally, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I shouldn't probably have done that, but mentally, I was a little scattered. So for you, before we get into that part, can you just share a little bit about you? I gave a small snippet of the amazing work that you do, but just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So grew up in Kansas in the 70s and 80s. Turns out I have autism. Didn't find that out until last year when I was almost 48. So one of these things is just not like the other, right? World works for everybody else, not for me. And I think like a lot of people in the military is one situation where it's like, I have got to get the heck out of here. Got to find my way out of here. Tried college. That was not for me. Joined the Marine Corps. That was my way out. And it really gave me a lot of direction, a lot of foundation, a lot of focus. Wasn't particularly good at being a Marine. Wasn't particularly good at being an airman. Again, having all this stuff going on that I didn't know about made it real hard to adapt that world, but it taught me a lot of lessons and gave me a lot of good skills. And that kind of dedication to that mission, that idea of like serving for higher good, serving for, the betterment of humanity really kind of has carried me through pretty much everything since. And that's what transitioned me to working in the intelligence field afterwards. Just kind of taking those same skills, moving on, doing that same work. Unfortunately, 2019, 2020, the world is not wanting to be saved. So I'm obviously in the wrong line of work, right? So that's when I started transitioning, working for people one-on-one, and through my own personal journey is really where I started digging into hypnosis is kind of like that tool to really get to the deepest parts of things. Because one of the problems that we face is we're so laser focused on what's going on right now, the problem in front of us right now, that we almost never take the time to back out and take a look at the bigger picture. And what I kept on seeing is like, as soon as I did that, I see the same thing happening a million different ways in my life, the same pattern playing out in a billion different ways. It's like, oh, shoot, I'm not dealing with all these little problems. I'm dealing with one problem. If I fix that one big problem, a lot of this little stuff goes away. So that's where I've really kind of tailored my approach to. Let's figure out what those bigger themes are, those bigger patterns, so we can kind of get rid of a bunch of stuff at once.
Yeah. So one, let's go back. Can you just talk to me just a little bit about how your transition out of the military was? You said you wasn't a great Marine or a great airman. Yeah. So how was the transition out? Was it like, yay, I'm out of this, or
no? Actually, I was Russian linguist in Marines. And when it came time to re-up, they didn't actually have any slots left for Russian linguists, so I was going to have to go back and get recertified as an Arab linguist, which would be like another year and a half in language school. And I wasn't doing particularly well. And they said, well, off you go. We just don't have any slots for you. So that was kind of a surprise. Went back, and me and my wife went back to Kansas. We're living with folks for a while. I was trying to transition and roll over to the Air Force, go out work at Fort Meade. And they just, for whatever reason, because the Marine Corps changed the MOS from 2675 to 2676, caused all kinds of like admin errors and stuff in the Air Force. So rolling over was just a complete pain in the butt. So started going back to school, trying to get like a finance degree, working on jobs, bartending, waiting tables, doing some like mortgage applications, things like that. And just was not working for me. This is obviously not what I need to be doing. So I joined up with the Air National Guard there for squadrons doing Predator and U-2s, support for the DGSs.
Mm-hmm.
Got myself back in the intel world, but still it's just like halfway in, halfway out. And it's like, I can't do this. That's what led me to throw my resume up online, got picked up by a company out in DC, started working counterterrorism work in 2004. And that's really what brought me back in that space. Getting back in that space where it's not necessarily structured, because counterterrorism work is a mess always. Counterproliferation work is a mess always. It's like you walk in the door just to see what's on fire that day. No plane of size contact with the enemy. But it gave me, it wasn't necessarily structure. It was purpose. It was mission. It was meaning. Yeah. One of the things I was struggling with trying to get this finance degree is like, I don't want to sit there and just like run up numbers to make widgets to like, no, that's useless. That has no purpose. It's like nothing. Right. Yeah. And I think it's that sense of meaning and purpose and mission and fulfillment that makes it so hard for us to transition out of the military to something normal. Yeah. Right. Because you just don't get that through most normal things. And so the advice I'd say is, if you're getting out, it's not about the money. It's not about the job. Find something that means something to you, that has an impact. Like I see a lot of guys start going into the nonprofit world, right? Because that's a place where you're doing actually mission-focused, impact-driven stuff. Is it profitable? Not really. It's hard. It's a hard life to live. My dad runs a nonprofit. It's not easy, right? But it's no more difficult than being an entrepreneur running your own business. That's got its own set of troubles, right? So if you're going to do something, start looking more for mission and impact. That's really the thing you're missing, not the structure. It's the meaning. Yeah.
I tell you what, I was just crafting a story to say at the company that I work for now, because to your point, in the military, there's purpose, there's mission, there's all of these different things, right? And when I came out, I was looking for that, and I landed a good job, right? So I'm still there, but it was like, what's the why? You know what I mean? Yes. And I tell you what, I was sitting in. So I'm in a distributor company, right? So I distribute electrical products.
Yep.
And tools. And I was sitting in a meeting with some people going over their inventory. And at the end, they started talking, like our clients, they started talking. And they were saying how the things, the one young lady, she had a dental surgery, and the other guy had a surgery somewhere, in his body. But the point was, they were manufacturing the pieces that was actually used to have the surgeries on their body. And I was providing the tools that they needed to manufacture those pieces, right? So it's kind of a, 50 shades, right? Or whatever, 9 degrees of separation.
So 7 degrees of baking kind of deal.
7 degrees, right? Yeah. But you find the purpose, right? You find the why. And it's like, this is important. I'm not just selling stuff, like people are benefiting, from this service. So I got you.
100%. Yeah.
All right.
Well, the other thing I'd say is, identity is such a huge thing that we struggle with. Like pretty much everybody does, right? Trying to figure out who we are, how good we are, how to navigate the world, right? Yeah. And when, like, let's face it, most people don't go into the military because like, oh, this is what I want to do. It's like, okay, let me get the hell out of here. Or like, I've got to do this, right? It's an escape in a lot of ways, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because quite frankly, it is a beautiful way out for so many people that would not otherwise have a way out. But when you're coming from those environments and this is your escape, it's very easy to lock into, this is the only way. This is the only tool. This is the only thing I've got. And because it's so clear when you're in the military, check this box, check this box, check this box, check this box. This is exactly what you got to do. There's a road plan. You ain't got to think about anything. You know exactly what you got to do to get to the next level. You got to know exactly what you got to do each day. Yeah. And so it's really hard sometimes when you lose that, it's like, oh, shoot, who the hell am I? Yeah. This has been the one thing that's carried me forward. And so one thing I see a lot is like, oh, people get locked in on that thing. It's really hard for them to open their aperture and actually live a real full life, because that's all they've got. Yeah. So if you're kind of facing that and kind of have that twinge, like, ooh, maybe you need to back up and take a look at maybe clearing out some of this other stuff to give you room to have a bigger picture.
Right. And I tell you what, I remember having conversations with some of my fellow service men and women. And it's, you're so ingrained in duty and honor and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But what I tell them is, you really got to think about yourself as well.
Yeah.
Especially when it gets close to the time when you're getting ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I tell them, look, we've been doing this Army thing for a while now, right? Someone's going to come after you.
Yep.
So don't think it's going to all fall apart. You got to really take care of yourself and think about the next phase.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately, if you, I'll just be blunt, if you survive the Army or the Marines or the Navy and you get out, what are you going to do, right? Yeah. I mean, you could start a paramilitary organization and stay in
some
that,
people, but that's
stay in that
messy.
space.
Yeah, that's messy.
Yeah. But ultimately, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself, your education, your health, all of these different things. So wholeheartedly agree.
Well, it's one of those things where like we're going in there, and even if you're trying to escape, you've got a sense of self-sacrifice. You've got an idea that you want to serve a greater good. So you are hardwired to give of yourself to others.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to start asking for in return. Right? It's hard. It's a habit you actually have to build. And a lot of times, again, we're coming from a space where you don't really have a lot. Anything you get is enough. Yeah. Right. So they give, here's some rewards, here's some vacation, here's a pay bump, cool. Awesome. I got some great, but you're giving so much more than you're getting in return. And you get out in the rest of the world, it's real easy to get taken advantage of. And look at just relationships in the military. Look at how one-sided some of those relationships are in the military, right? And that simply that plays out in every other area of your life too. People take and take and take, and if you don't set up that barrier and say, no, this is what I'm worth, this is what I deserve, you will give me, you will compensate me, you will treat me accordingly to what I deliver. Yeah, that's a skill you got to learn. Otherwise, it's a hard road. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't even think about it like that, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset. It's all of these things, right? And then we're all the mindset, and we'll jump off of this, but the mindset is always about team. It's always about, and it's nothing wrong with success, success focus. Like that's how I think of things now, but it's really about team. And I tell you what, when I got out, I was really concerned about the dynamics it would be in the civilian side of things. So I thought it would be cutthroat. I thought everyone would be gunning for you. You know what I'm saying? Trying to take your spot. And I just thought that's how it was. And so I was fearful of that because I'm thinking, all right, I'm already behind the
curve. Yeah.
Behind the curve in this area. Cause I've been doing the Army. For me, it was over 20 years.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you get out there, you feel a certain way. And thankfully, thank you, Lord, I was able to find a place that has the same type of mentality, the same type of team focus. And I can call anybody up and they're willing to help. It's not always like that. Right. So I understand that I'm blessed. But the point is, get your mindset right. Things are going to be a little different, but you're going to be better prepared for it than most people think they are when they come out of the military.
I'll tell you, one of the things about being in the military, coming out of that, you have such a huge advantage over normal people.
Yeah.
Because like two of the biggest things, like number one, the ability to handle adversity. Just that, the ability to handle adversity. The amount of suck that you have to deal with in the military, no matter the branches, like the amount of suck you have to deal with on a regular basis is just overwhelming to the normal person.
Yeah.
And that's just an average day in the life for you. Like stuff has to get really freaking bad before you start hitting that threshold. And the other thing is, like it does, compared to the normal person, man, everything has to be falling completely apart. It's like, oh man, things are getting bad. The entire world is on fire. Man, this looks like it's going to be a rough one today. So, and that kind of perspective, like, man, it just makes you so much more calm under pressure and allows you to navigate the situation so much better. The other thing is just, the Marine Corps, it just has to get done. It just has to be done. This has to be done. Right. Cool. Is it going to suck? Yes. Is it going to be horrible? Yes. Get it done anyway. You're allowed to bitch, whine, moan, and complain. That's your right as enlisted guy. You also say you must do it. You get to whine and complain, but you do it anyway, right? There's a trade-off there.
Right.
But you just get it done. Sometimes it's just like, I don't care if you'd like it on, just get the freaking thing done. Yeah. And those two things alone are going to put you miles ahead of like 90% of the people there. The other thing that you really learn in the military is not to put up with bullshit. There is a certain point where it's like, nope, I'm sorry, that ain't right.
Yeah.
And you put your foot down. And the ability to be confrontational and set hard boundaries when it's necessary stops you from getting taken advantage of in so many ways. Because of the way that those people operate, they win by forcing you to play by the explicit rules while they're bending the behind the scenes. And we have this tendency to say, nope, I don't care what the rules are. That ain't it. That ain't it. You are not treating me that way. That, man, those three things get you so much further ahead than most people. The technical skills, the job skills, that stuff's easy to learn. It's easy to pick up. This other stuff, really hard to get anywhere else.
Yeah. And a lot of employers are starting. I know part of it is just the buzzword. It's a thing to do, right? To love the service person. But a lot of people do understand that. They understand the leadership qualities that you have. They understand the mentality. They understand the, dealing with adversity. And they take, full advantage of it. I know the guy that hired me, strangely enough, and I like talking about him. He's actually a Canadian citizen. He works here, but he hired me. And when I first got to the company, the team was like a Marine, an Army person, well, 2 Army, 1 Special Forces. He was trying to, he had all of them. He had Navy as well, Air Force. He was trying to find someone Space Force. But it was so new. It was so new. So I'm sure they were still in the military. But yeah, he understood what it brought to the table. Yeah. It's a different dynamic. You know what I mean? So
huge advantage.
Hey, so why did you become a hypnotist?
Yeah, well, that's sort of an interesting. That's definitely a left turn in Albuquerque side of the sort of situation right there. Well, 2019, 2020, like I said, I was coming to that point where I've been doing this stuff, doing intel work for like 23 years. I wasn't being allowed to do the fun stuff anymore. So I was doing like more project management, relationship management stuff, which is not my forte. I don't enjoy that at all. And so I'm looking for the next big thing. And so I realized that instead of trying to like save the world, like my dad runs a nonprofit, my brother does financial advising, mom does mortgage stuff. They're always helping these people one-on-one. I'm always hearing about all these stories about how they're making these people's lives better. I'm like, okay, cool. That's more of what I need. That feedback loop, right? Actually getting some results instead of like throwing stuff over the wall and hoping something sticks. So I thought about becoming a psychologist. That's me like 6 years and $500,000 to get my PhD. Unappealing in your 40s. And I just don't have the runway. Mentally, I don't have the runway because, like I said, growing up autistic, didn't know it. I've been dealing with, suicidal ideation since I was like 9. Right. And so the military, that whole service for greater good was basically how I was keeping myself alive, giving myself a reason to live. That's not working anymore. Need a new reason. So I didn't have the psychological space to spend 6 years getting my next job. But I was in a group started doing some work on myself around then. In a group, a men's group, one of the guys there was a hypnotist talking about like toxic shame and emotional baggage. I'm like, well, Ray's got some of that. So did a session with him, just felt lighter. Like if you're carrying around 50 pounds of junk, get rid of 30 pounds. Everything's just easier. Really caught my attention. It's like, okay, cool. So got certified as a hypnotist at the beginning of 2020 because I could do that in 6 weeks for $2,000, right? At least start to dip my toes and see if there's something I actually want to do. And right after that, everything shuts down because of the pandemic. I can't work from home because everything I do is classified. So I got nothing but time. Right. Yeah. So I started working with some guys online, realized I had talent for it. And it's like, okay, let's go ahead and roll down this road. Started my business in April, went full-time in October, been doing it full-time ever since. But it was really that like sort of personal journey trying to figure out what was going on in my head and fixing myself once and for all that really drove that to be like my purpose and my mission. So I tried pretty much everything. I did the therapy and the CBT and the EMDR and the somatic work and the breath work and the spiritual retreats and the psychedelics. I did freaking everything under the sun. And nothing fixes you. Nothing actually fixes the problem, right? Everything helps. Everything moves the ball forward. Everything open the door, make life better. Nothing actually fixes the problem. You're always still working on it, right? Healing is a lifelong journey. And because I'm autistic, I couldn't lie to myself and pretend that better equals fixed. Okay. Right? So I had to keep going. It's like, I got to find a way to fix this thing. Otherwise, this is going to be worth living. I'm tired of dealing with this. I can't deal with stuff anymore, right? If I can't find a way to fix this for good, I'm done. And that led me to realize, okay, a couple of different things. Number one, the vast majority of stuff that we're dealing with is in the subconscious mind. That's where all the problems are. It's all that processing that happens before we get that conscious picture and get to make that conscious decision. All right. Well, if that's the place where all the problems are, there's only 2 ways to get there: psychedelics and hypnosis. That's it. Right? Psychedelics are a beautiful tool. Open up that door, take you on a ride. Amazing things. Can do so much for you. But they're going to take you on whatever ride they want to. You don't have a choice. You're going on that ride whether you really want to or not, right? And it's beautiful because it's often going to show you a lot of things that you didn't know or force you to confront things you've been avoiding. And it's beautiful. It's like a confrontation exploration tool. Massive changes. Okay. But there's very little space to actually do change while you're down there because you're on a ride you don't have control of. And once that ride is over, that door's closed again. You don't have access to it anymore. So everything else is like, okay, how do I make these conscious frameworks and decision frameworks based on what I now know? Again, better, new possibilities, not fixed. Hypnosis is the only real tool that I found that gives me that targeted, directed, sustained access to your unconscious mind. The difficulty with most hypnosis work these days is it's based on suggestion and persuasion. When I open up the door, throw a bunch of good stuff in, hope it sticks, right? Yeah. But now I've got a new belief set competing with an old belief set. The old belief set has an entire lifetime of evidence. So typically it wins out, right? So there's a lot of stuff you can do around the edges. Great for things like breaking habits, creating more motivation, killer for smoking cessation. Nothing better on the planet for that. But in terms of major changes, doesn't really move the needle, okay? But again, spent 23 years in intelligence work. If there's a pattern of behavior, there's something that drives it, right? There's a mechanism that drives it. It's doing it for a purpose. There's a reason, there's a goal, there's an objective, there's a problem your mind is trying to solve. And it already knows what that is, right? Cool. I've got access to the back of your head where all that information is. I spent 20 years in intel. Show me what the hell's going on. Right? I started asking questions. The information's all there. I can ask whatever I want. You're going to give me the answer. So all I have to do is ask the right questions to put together the puzzle. Okay. Show me the chain of logic that created this belief. Show me how you got to this conclusion. And as soon as I know that, I've been taking apart systems and machines for years. Disprove this old chain of logic, create a new chain of logic that drives a different conclusion. Yeah. Right? But the other thing I realized is we're taking a very left brain approach to things. Right? I talked about zooming out earlier. Individual problems, individual issues, individual events, individual traumas. Right? Left brain, rational brain is looking at details. The right side of your brain, your emotional brain, is looking at the overall picture, looking at patterns over time. The narrative runs through a bunch of series of events, right? The forest rather than the trees. Okay? We're chopping down trees. The forest is still there. Right? So that overall meta narrative of I'm not good enough keeps playing out in all these different ways. But that has a structure. It's got a pattern. It's got logic. It came to be for a reason. Sit in the same place. All I got to do is ask different questions to get to that place. So instead of chopping down trees, why not just change the forest? If there's a big box in your head, label on the side of it says, I'm not good enough, a million things in the box. Typical approaches, take things out of the box, put it in a different box. Okay. Works, right? But there's a million things in there. Adding more stuff all the time, never ends. That's why healing is a lifelong journey, because we're doing it one at a time, right? But there's a label on the box. Why not just take I'm not good enough off, put I am good enough on, and you're freaking done. Because now everything in the box means I'm good enough.
You make it sound simple.
Nobody says I can't.
Nobody says I can't. My box. Change my box title.
And that's the thing is like, and it's because we're looking at it from this perspective, because that's where all of our tools are. Yeah. I don't know any other hypnotist with an intel background who are autistic that had to figure this stuff out. Right. So it's just like, it's one of the things where I didn't really have a choice. I had to figure out how this stuff works or I was out, And so but the thing is, I knew their solution had to exist. Right. I knew there had to be a solution, right? There had to be a way to figure out what's actually going on. So my mind just kept on dragging me through it until I figured it out. But once you realize, we're looking at two different scales, two different lenses, two different sets of conclusions. They're different, but they work the same. It's just a matter of figuring out how this one works, fix this one. Right. And a lot of this other stuff kind of goes away. The stuff down here becomes a heck of a lot easier because it's not about trying to fix what's going on in the back of your head. This is fixed. Like, I'm good enough now, so I don't have to deal with that anymore. How do I navigate the world now that I am good enough?
Gotcha. Wow. So you're really in there moving pieces around.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I got, okay. So we got a tutorial on that really quick. I'm going to go back. It's hindsight, right?
Yep.
I'm going to go back just a little bit.
Absolutely.
2-part question. You said that you were diagnosed as being autistic. You said it like 4 or 5 times, so I'm going to bring it up now.
Sure. Absolutely.
Late in life.
Yep.
So one, what led you to go and what led you to go to be tested to see what was going on? And then 2, once you got the results, how did you feel?
So, beginning of last year, I'm an entrepreneur trying to do things on my own. I've always kind of known I had ADHD, but never really did anything about it. Right. If you're working in the intel field, military, everything's always chaos. You never have to worry about what's coming next. Right. Attention deficit isn't a bad thing. It's actually really good because you can multitask like hell. It's awesome. Yeah. Once you're trying to run your own business, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to do that you don't really want to do. The ADHD really kind of takes a toll. So started getting treated for ADHD March or April of last year. The problem is I didn't realize that I had bipolar disorder. And if you start getting ADHD medications, stimulants like Adderall and stuff like that to somebody who's bipolar, it can trigger a manic episode. So June of 23, I have an acute manic episode that ended in a psychotic break. Over about a week and a half, I lost my freaking mind. Right? Got arrested, thrown in jail for a couple of days, just like completely broke. And so that was a big surprise. So as soon as I got out of jail, I'm like, okay, let me make sure there's nothing else down there. Right? So I went ahead and did a full battery test. It's like, okay, let me make sure that there's no other landmines out there that I don't know about,
Yeah.
And my two youngest sons have Asperger's syndrome. So I'm like, let me go ahead and just throw this on the list, just to see if there's something there. And they're like, yep, you're autistic.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay, that checks. Yeah. Now, as far as that goes, that made everything easier because it explained why nothing ever worked for me. It explains why I never fit in. It explains why normal stuff doesn't work. And just never made sense to me because part of that is it's like I'm being socially colorblind in a way. Okay. Where there's all this like nuance and detailed human interaction that I'm just blind to. It's like if you're walking into a wine club and there's people are like level 3 sommeliers talking about the terroir and the tannins and this and that and the other. I'm like, yes, that does in fact taste like red wine. There's just like there's just so much stuff I miss. Right. And it's like, no wonder. It's like now this entire life of messiness just makes total sense. I'm autistic and bipolar. No wonder every relationship I've been in is going to be a complete train wreck. Duh.
Yeah.
Just like everything makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of work I had to do to kind of like look back over my life and say, okay, this is because of this. This is because of this. This is me being bipolar. This sort of thing, right? Essentially, you have to reevaluate and question everything you've done in your life because now you understand these motivations you had no idea about before. Yeah. But the harder part was really the bipolar thing of trying to like find medications to keep myself stable and get it to where I was functional again. That was like 14, 15 months worth of work just to get me to a point where I could really be myself again and really work. That was hard. Yeah. And, being an entrepreneur, and you're not really able to work, it's a big financial hit. It's not a good time. Right. But taking it from the perspective of I'm just on sabbatical until such time as I get this thing on point. If I got to run up the credit cards, if I got to pull them from my 401k, that's just what I got to do. Okay. Right. You're in the suck. If you're you're going through hell, just keep going. It's like, nothing else can be done. You just have to suck it up. Just got to do it because that's what needs to be done. Yeah. And that ability to just face that head on and just deal with it and not have to run from it was huge. But on the other side, on the other hand, once I'm on the other side, now that I'm on the side of it, because I've been stable for about 2-3 months now, I can hit the ground running. Yeah. Right. Because I've got all that stuff built up. I've got all this insight built up from everything I've experienced. It's time to rock and roll. It's just getting to a point where I could do that again.
So how were you during that time period? I know you embraced the suck and everything. It's a good thing you had some military background with that, right? But how was it? Were you still in a relationship at that time?
No, my relationship had ended before that happened. So I've been single for over a year and a half now.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So how was it going through there? Did you have a support system, or was it just the doctors and
pretty much
the
just
medical
me
practitioners? Yeah.
Pretty much just me and my psychiatrist. Part of the work that I do, to get to where I'm at, we can talk about this later, but one of the things that I do is reimagine what emotions are, because we look at emotions as pain. Emotional pain comes from emotional wounds caused by emotional trauma, right? Okay. When you're in that mindset, all of your negative emotions you have to avoid, you got to push away. It's triggering all the survival circuits in your mind. That's really what's hard to deal with. Yeah. And when you're in that space, your mind has to treat your mood and your emotional state as a threat to your physical survival, right? Because if you're in too much pain, you're suffering, you need to get out, right? Yeah. But I had changed that from pain to signals and questions. Okay. Where your emotions aren't asking you, it's not pain. It's like, hey, I need your help to solve this problem. Okay. So negative emotions are like, hey, we're running up against this kind of problem. I need you to help me figure it out. Great. That meant that the emotions I was experiencing weren't painful. I could engage with them. It's just, here's a problem. Here's the thing that I'm facing. Awesome. And because I'm feeling this way, my mind is helping me figure out how to solve it. Yeah. Right. Because the hardest part of solving any problem is figuring out what the heck the problem is. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if your mind is helping you figure out what the problem is, everything's pretty much easier after that. Right. Okay. So it was easier to be in those negative emotions as long as I needed to figure stuff out, because I knew it wasn't painful. Okay. It wasn't easy. It sucked. Right. But I could be in it. And the biggest thing that I was dealing with was just frustration. Yeah. It's like, when the hell is this going to end? Right. Because it's like, anytime you're hopping on one of these new medications, it takes like 4 or 6 weeks for it to really ramp up into your system to full effect. Okay. So I hop on one, things start being good. And then 4, 5, 6 weeks in, I get this like all these kinds of side effects hit. It's like, well, crap, now I got to get off of this one, try the next one. 4 or 6 weeks ramp up, crash. 4 weeks, just like that roller coaster for like I said, like 12, 13, 14 months was just brutal because you never really know what next day. You wake up the next day, you have no idea what you're going to be capable of. You know, sometimes I'm waking up good, like a couple of weeks where I can get out of bed until like 2:00 in the afternoon, nothing I do about it. Right. One medication actually had me with suicidal thoughts for about 2 weeks till you clear out of my system again. That was not fun. But the thing is, like with that, it's like, oh, okay, I know what this is. This is just a medication doing its thing. All I gotta do is wait this out. So while these are just thoughts I'm having, it's fine. You know, been here before a lot of times. I know how to deal with this. It's like, okay, don't like it.
That's good.
Don't like it, but it's like, okay, fine. I know what's going on. I don't have to be distressed or worried about it. I just got to find a way to kind of manage it until it goes away. Yeah. You know? So it's just sit there working the problem, just waiting for the right combination of stuff to hit. And as long as you are aggressive advocate for yourself, as long as you're paying attention, as long as you are, you know, taking the initiative, you can get through it. Right. But part of that is that whole aggression of like, no, I am not going to let this stop me. I will find a solution. Right. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what we have to do. And as soon as something comes up, okay, this is a problem. Come here. We're going to fix it. I'm not going to be a passive player in this. Right.
Yeah. I tell you what, we're slinging this,
right?
We're slinging this word suck around, and I'll let you finish your point. And you know, for any non-military person, like it's not a word that we take lightly. Like it's really horrible, but to have that positive spin on it, we just say, oh, we're in the suck. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is, and we got to get through it. That's the type of mentality that we're talking about. You know, you're going to go through some adversity in life, and you just need to look at it, embrace it. Don't, you know, try not to let it break you down. So I just want to make sure that we emphasize when we say suck, it's not like, oh, it's raining outside and I got to go to school. You know, no. Like, it's nothing like that.
Like that was a rough year and a half, but like, if you're going to go from point A to point B, you actually have to start at point A, which means you have to acknowledge and own what point A really is. Right. So many people don't want to own and acknowledge the situation that they're in. It's like, oh no, like it's like, sure, like this is bad, but this thing over here is good. It's like, no, your life sucks. Yeah, but this is okay. It's like, if you're focusing on the things that are right instead of the problems you're solving, you're never going to solve the problem. You got to start at point A. You got to own what point A is. You got to be honest with yourself, right? Because if you can do that, then you can plot a course to point B. But if you don't, you're always going to be lost, right? And so one of the beautiful things about this idea of like embrace the suck is just freaking own what the situation is.
Yeah.
If you can just own what the situation is, you can find a way through it.
I knew when I started off my intro that we was going to get into some sort of navigational terminology, and you talked about you can plot your points, you know, to be right, because it's legit. I remember just in real navigational terminology, I was at a leadership school and we had to do a land nav course. And I didn't orient myself to the map, first of all. So I actually, so there's multiple points. So I knew where A was, but I didn't orient myself. So when I got to the first point, I was successful. I was successfully lost. I had no idea where I was, you know what I mean? So I was lost out in the woods and I found some people walking and I just followed them back in. And that's a good point. You got to know where the hell you are in order to get to that next point. So that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. And so really quick, your book, Winter Peace, it focuses on ending inner conflict. Like, what inspired you to write it, and what's the central message that you hope that the readers take away from it?
So, like I said, as you can see, I've got a very different approach to how the mind works, very different approach to how to navigate life. And this is a culmination of like 4 or 5 years of working on myself, working with all these different clients, and really understanding on a deeper level how some of these mechanisms work. And it's very different from the common perception of what they do, right? It's got a very different model of how the mind works. Kind of breaks it down to like conscious mind, rational mind, emotional mind, instinctive mind. Each of these have different jobs, right? And how to give them their job and put them in their proper lane, right? How to teach your mind how to work together as a unified team, right? Because if the conscious is like the CEO of the company, rational mind being like senior management, emotional mind being like middle management, instinctive mind being workers, if they are working together, you don't really have to do a lot of stuff to micromanage. But if they don't, those teams don't know how to communicate, don't know how to give each other what they need. Now everybody's got to come to the boss for the answers. Which is why all this stuff keeps bubbling up, all the overthinking and the thoughts and the emotions and the stress and all this stuff, because your mind doesn't know how to work together. So if you can understand what those different parts of you need, if you can understand those questions that your emotions are asking, now you can train your mind to work together as a unified team down below. So the CEO can focus on doing CEO stuff, right? Which is what he should be doing. Strategic planning.
Right.
Let's go this way.
Right.
Monitor the situation. Let your people do their thing, right?
Yeah.
Talks a lot about how to reframe a lot of the earlier traumas and stuff, like all these earlier narratives and kind of overarching beliefs. So you can get away from this idea like, oh, I got to fix myself. No, you're not the problem. Problem's out there. How do I need to navigate that? Right. Be done fixing yourself.
Right.
Emotions aren't pain.
Right.
You're not wounded. It's trauma's a different thing than we expect. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And once you kind of understand all these concepts, it teaches you to move through the world in a different way. Because getting anything you want in life is just solving a series of problems.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all it is. And either you know what the problem is, in which case you're solving it, you're on your way, or you don't know what the problem is, in which case you run up against the wall, start feeling some stuff. At which point, those emotions guide you to help you figure out what that problem is.
Yeah.
Right. So it actually helps you figure out and navigate and solve problems faster. The other thing is this: your ability to do work is based on your capacity to like withstand suffering and discomfort. Right. I can only train so hard until I get sore. Right.
Yeah.
Which means our mental and emotional capacity for work is our capacity to withstand mental and emotional suffering. Right. Which is part of why we have such an advantage in the military. Is like we've learned how to do that. Right. Well, if emotions are no longer pain, can you actually suffer mentally or emotionally?
No.
Yeah. So now your capacity to do mental and emotional work is essentially infinite.
Right.
How much could you train if you never got sore? How far could you run if you never got tired? As far as you want.
Do you think you're breathing, Neo? That was from the Matrix, right?
Oh yeah, no, dude. You know, it's really it's a major shift in mindset. It's like, wait, because this situation's like, okay, cool. I can work as long as I need to, or as long as I choose, because it doesn't hurt. Any emotions I'm feeling are helping figure out the problem, so it's actually getting me there faster. So feeling bad becomes a good thing in a way, right? Either I'm on the right track and everything feels good, or I'm feeling bad and somebody solved the problem. Either way, I'm winning.
I get it.
That's what I'm saying. Success becomes inevitable. It's just a matter of time. It's already yours. You just don't quite have it yet. Because you've solved that inner conflict. Your mind's working together. Everything's on the same page as a unified team, working in the same direction. When you have your unit cohesion maximized, nothing can fucking stop you. Same thing.
I like it. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back to now. You're going to help some service. We're going to go help some servicemen and servicewomen out there that are transitioning. Like, what advice would you give other service people transitioning? And one, so like part of it is just transitioning out.
Yes.
Right. Part of it is the mental part. And I think with your experience and your expertise, probably the mental part, I'd prefer you answered that. Like, what advice would you give?
Figure out your why. Figure out your why. You went into the military for a reason. Figure out your why. You stayed in there for a long time. Figure out your why. What was it about that experience that really drove you, right? What was that core thing? Was it the camaraderie? Was it the structure? Was it the clarity of vision? Was it the higher good? Was it, who knows, right? Yeah. There's something about that drove you. That's your core motivator. Find something out there that's going to provide and feed that core motivation. That's going to be the best fit, right? Yeah. Because one thing I figured out is if you're good at what you do, money's not a problem, right? If you're good at if you're good at what you do, money's not a problem, right? Yeah. People are starving for talent. People are starving for people who work hard. People are starving for people who have drive and vision. You're going to be fine as far as that goes, right? The biggest thing you can do is find the right fit. Find the organization that can actually value you, leverage you to the maximum extent possible for your talents and your abilities that fits with your vision and dream. You do that, you're never going to work a day in your life. Right.
I like it. Good advice.
Thank you.
Good advice. All right, one more. It's always, I told you, you're gonna be dropping tips and strategies. Hey, look, for someone struggling with limiting belief, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, where can they start to make a change? Like, immediately, almost.
The first thing you have to recognize is that you do have a limiting belief. Yeah. Own it. Just own it, right? If you think you're good enough and you feel like you're not good enough, guess what? Both of those are true. This is a perfect thing. Yeah. We have this idea that if we think something and we feel something, that one is incorrect. One has to be right, one has to be wrong. That's not how that works.
Right.
Our mind is looking from two different perspectives at the same time. Forest and trees at the same time at all times. Our emotional mind is looking at that bigger picture. right? So if your details say this is good and the bigger picture says it's bad, guess what? Bigger picture is bad.
Bigger picture.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're both correct at all times. So if they disagree, you should probably take a step back and ask why.
Yeah.
Because that's just as right as this one is. It's like, ooh, shoot, there's something I'm missing.
Yeah.
Best question you can always ask yourself is, what am I missing? What am I missing? If what I'm thinking is right, then I should be getting certain results. If I'm not getting those results, there's something I'm missing. That don't work the way I think it should be.
That's a good question.
Sitting there in the therapist, I should be fixed by now. I ain't fixed by now. That ain't how that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That ain't how that works. I don't know how it does work, but that ain't it. I was something I'm missing.
That's a good question.
Back up. What am I missing? Right? If you're not getting the results you should be, you're missing something.
Yeah.
Step back. What am I missing? See that conflict. What am I missing?
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Okay. What am I missing? You got it.
What am I missing?
All right. I had another question. It was about what was it? How do you define peak mental focus? And why is that crucial for personal or professional success?
To me, peak mental focus, you've heard like that flow state, right? Where you're just 100% all in, right? Peak mental focus is being able to say, this is what I'm going to do, and then put every bit of your energy, your time, energy, effort into doing that. But it's not a driven thing. Okay. It's not I'm going to make this happen. All right.
Right.
It's about lining all those different capabilities you have up and pointing them in the same direction. Okay. Again, if your mind is CEO, management, so forth and so on, CEO says, go here. And the rest of you does the thing. Right. You got people for the rest of that. Right. So it's just keeping all those elements of you lined up in the same direction. And that doesn't matter what you pointed at. Right. Personal, professional, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As soon as you set that thing, so we're going that way, line everything up and let it rock and roll, which is for me why getting that internal conflict solved is the most critical part. Because until that internal conflict is solved, you got people going in different directions. You got all these different competing priorities. You can't get that peak mental performance, right? That's why we have the stress. That's why we have the anxiety. That's why we have all this overthinking. That's why we're fighting ourselves because we're not on the same page, right? And the easiest thing to do is say, oh, well, I want this. I'm in charge. This is how the way stuff should be. But your people are saying, yo, there's something going wrong. We've all had those bosses that don't freaking listen.
Yeah.
Try and help them out. They're just not freaking listening. Don't be that boss.
Yeah.
Don't be that boss to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. To yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Because that's what we're doing. We're saying, it's like, you guys don't know what to do. It's like, don't be that boss yourself. Your mind at every single level, at every moment in time is trying to help you get what you want and what you need in life. There's no such thing as self-sabotage. It doesn't exist. It's just another part of your mind says, oh no, this is more important. We got to do this here. We can't do that yet. If you're not getting what you want, you're getting what you need. If you don't know what that is, you should probably figure out why that is.
The mind is, I can appreciate you getting into this field of work. I wish I had you said the runway or the capacity to dig a little deeper into it, right? Because I just look at mundane things. Like, just say today, I was looking for my headphones. So when I went out for a walk this morning, I had my headphones on, but I couldn't find them. And my mind kept saying, go by the computer or whatever and get your hat. I'm like, but I already got a hat. Go by the computer and get your hat.
Yep.
That's the CEO getting mad, right?
Yep.
And so I finally go and I say, well, maybe I'll change hats because it's
Whatever.
A little cooler than I think outside. Pick up the hat and my damn headphones are underneath the hat. It's just so weird. Like it happens all the time. And when you listen, you notice it. When you listen and when you don't listen.
Yep.
And it's just hearing you say your mind is always there to help you, point you in the right direction, even in the mundane things.
Yes.
It's really interesting. So I don't have the runway. Go.
Yeah. That's right. You don't have to worry about, like, every autistic person has like that one thing that's like their jam. Mine is how the mind works. Right. So you don't need me. You don't need to be me. Like, you don't need to be Elon Musk to build rockets. I figure this stuff out for you. Don't worry about that. That's what the book is for. Right. But the way I'd say is like, there's three basic things you have to do to get anything you want in life. First thing is you got to be your authentic self to the maximum extent possible. Right. To the extent that you can be who you really are, do that. You're lying to yourself, trying to be somebody else, you're not going to have good results in the world. Right. which means you kind of have to figure out who you really are, which means kind of digging in and looking at all the stuff you really don't like, kind of make a piece for that, figure out what that is, right? That's the hardest part.
Okay.
Hardest part is number one, being your authentic self. Number two, you got to listen. All these different parts of you, they got a job. They're trying to tell you something, they're trying to help you navigate a certain part of the world. Listen, trying to help you. So if something's going on, you say, something ain't right. Step back in. Number three, get curious. It's trying to show you something. Great. What am I missing?
Yeah.
I'm looking for my headphones.
Yeah.
Get my hat? Okay, let me go get my hat. Do I have to understand why? No.
Yeah,
I'm asking
exactly.
help. I'm asking, help me find this thing. Great. Go do this. Awesome. I'm gonna go do that. If you do those three things, everything you want is going to be taken care of because you're moving in alignment with what you really need and who you really are. You're paying attention to all those different signals that your mind is designed to give you in the first place, and you're falling asleep when it needs you to.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. So I clearly have tried to ask revealing questions.
Yep.
Informative questions, right? But I always feel less than. No, I'm just kidding. But I always feel that there's something I haven't asked. So is there something that we haven't covered just yet that you like to share with the audience?
Yeah. I would say that the most important thing that anybody can ever have is hope. If you have hope, if you believe that there is a solution, if you believe that there's a way out, you will find it one way or another, right? Again, if things aren't working, if you think you're up against a wall, if you think you're out of options, you're missing something. Yeah. If you're in the hole, fair enough. Most of us get there because we think we've tried everything. We've already run down the list and nothing works. Great, fine, fair enough. Doesn't matter who you talk to. Ask somebody. Talk to somebody because they're going to give you a different perspective. And even if they're not right, they're going to show you some spaces where you're wrong, where you're missing something. Again, what are you missing? Right? Grab somebody, talk to somebody. Doesn't matter who. All you have to do is give yourself options. Because if you got options, you're not done yet. That's all you got to do. Just find more options. Get curious.
You know how when you do something and you've been doing it and then you hear someone kind of validate some of the things that you're doing and it just feels good, right? Having those options, having that hope, and you can apply that in a lot of ways. At work, there's certain things it seems impossible. Eat the elephant or whatever, the elephant in the room. There's a possible way. It may be hard. You may have to embrace the suck to get to that point, but have hope, right? That you'll get there and you will, right? That's going to be your guiding light. Listen to your CEO self. Right? They're going to tell you how to get there.
Listen to your team.
I love all the messaging that you've been given. I really do, Ryan. Yeah, absolutely. So any parting words?
Well, like I said, I've been doing this. I've got a very different approach to things. I lay it all out in Winter Peace, How to End Inner Conflict, Make Success Inevitable. It's designed to give you as much benefit of all this stuff as I can in a big form. My website is www.ryanthehypnotist.com. If you're looking forward to doing some of that deeper work, hit me up. We'll just sit down, do a 45-minute consultation. It's free. Dig into what's going on in your life. I'll tell you why things are the way they are, why stuff hasn't worked, give you that path forward.
Yeah. Thank you. I was going to ask you where. So we're going to learn about you. We're going to learn about you. Is that on the webpage?
The webpage, yeah. LinkedIn is a good space. I've got a YouTube channel, Ryan the Hypnotist on YouTube.
Let's go
Instagram,
to YouTube.
same
I like
thing.
that one.
Putting up a bunch, doing a lot of these interviews. I've got a lot of stuff coming out from that. I'm going to be doing a lot more personal articles as well. I just haven't gotten around to it, but yeah.
Yeah. Amazing insight. Thanks for sharing your incredible journey and insights on unlocking the mind's potential. This is a script, but I really want to say, man, this has been a really good conversation.
Thank you.
You've gotten me thinking. One of my favorite movies, that's why I said the Neo thing. Was The Matrix, right? Because it really got me thinking about stuff. So this conversation, I really benefited personally from the conversation. So thanks.
I'm glad I could help.
And back to the script. Okay. Your work in ending inner conflict and helping others achieve peak performance is truly inspiring. And to our listeners, remember to subscribe to Hindsight the Podcast so you don't miss more stories like Ryan's filled with wisdom and actionable tips to be more. Till next time, keep reflecting and keep growing. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button. No, not right there. Over to the right. Down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.